this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the Rog Azoth. This is quite possibly the nicest main brand gaming keyboard I've ever had my hands on. A really nice looking keyboard, but more importantly, fantastic sounding and really comfortable to type on. I'm going to give you a number of sound tests throughout this video. I'm going to kickstart it with this one. Now, it's really hard to do this keyboard justice on camera and in recordings like that, but stick with me to the end because I'm also going to sound test it against some other main brand keyboards, because that's my main takeaway, and that's one thing I want you to take away from this video, is that this keyboard really stands up to being a fantastic main brand keyboard, because that's the point, because you'll hear a lot of people arguing about how gamer keyboards are rubbish and custom keyboards are the way to go. This actually meets that middle ground, and in a number of different ways I'm going to talk to you about. You can see, for example, that it comes with its own little switch kit that includes everything you need to lube your own switches. It has some extra switches, but also all the different parts that you'd normally need for a custom keyboard. That's because it has swappable switches, which means you can swap out the switches with 5-pin switches. More on that a bit later on. It also has Bluetooth and wireless connectivity. Like the SteelSeries Apex Pro, it has a display screen, and the top right there, you've also got a multifunction key. And this is a 75% keyboard with a really premium feel to it. I was shocked by what it was like out of the box in terms of the comfort, the look, the premium finish, and a number of other things as well that I'm going to talk to you about as we go through this video. But you can see simple little things. So this display at the top can obviously be used for a number of things, but you also have a multifunction button up here, which can be pushed up and down for volume up and down, but can also be pushed into mute. There's also a button on the very edge of that to allow you to cycle through various different profiles and settings, and you can use it for all sorts of nifty things there. You also have hardware level control to cycle through various different RGB lighting setup, so you can see me cycling through those with function left and right, and you can also turn the brightness up and down with function up and down on there as well. I'm going to show you some of that RGB lighting in the dark in a second as well, just to show you that, because off you'll see that the lettering isn't that visible, and that's one small complaint which I will show off again in a second. As I said, I was struck by, when I got it out of the box, sort of the weighty premium feel to it. You can see that it comes in at 1,159 grams here, so it's just a kilo basically. And I was struck by that because I've been using the Logitech G915 TKL as my mainstay. You can see that's just 827 grams by comparison, significantly lighter. This thing is heavy, hefty, and really nice quality. And it probably is going to cost a small fortune because of that, and I think it's worth it. I think you'll find that it is very much comparable with those really expensive custom keyboards that you can get, and delivers a really good typing experience from it. As you'll see from the sound test, you heard a little bit of it at the beginning, and you'll see a lot more of it at the end. I'm going to do a separate video as well without any talking. You can just hear the sounds of the keyboard if you want to. I was struck by just how wonderful it is. It's pre-lubed, and it also has other things to make it sound fantastic. It's also available with a number of different switch setups as well, so I'll leave all the specs in the description. But here you can see what I was talking about. When the RGB lighting's turned off in the dark, and even during the day, you can't really see the lettering on the keys very well. This is one of my small complaints. But when you turn it on, obviously you've got various different lighting effects, the usual rainbow, breathing, static, and other things, including reactive ones, where it will spread out from the keys itself or just illuminate some of them, and there'll be a gentle glow from it. Now, this isn't the brightest RGB lighting I've seen on a keyboard by any means, but obviously it is a wireless keyboard, so there's some sort of balance to be struck between having nice RGB and having decent battery life. The battery life has been good, and again, I'll leave all the specs in the description so you can find out the theoretical battery life of it, but I've found I haven't had to plug it in very much. When you do need to, obviously USB-C charging. It also has Bluetooth connectivity, so you can connect multiple devices with ease, and a really nice sort of subtle styling to it. I think it doesn't look like a gamer keyboard, which might appeal to many, But what was the main appeal for me is the flexibility of it, but also just the well-designed nature of it. So this has a triple layered dampening setup, which not only includes silicone gaskets, but also pads and foam and other things. And as I said, I'm not really sure I'll be able to put this across in the video very well, but that makes it really quiet, comfortable, but also gives you a really nice response when you're typing on it. Now, it also comes as standard with this little kit that allows you to lube your own switches. Now, it's worth noting that the switches come pre-lubed from the factory, but if you want to, you also have 3 extra ones and the little tool that you can see here to take them apart and go through the lubing process. And there is a guide video on how to do this that is linked in the box for your QR code. So Rog has an official one, but I was going to show you some of the steps for it here. You can basically break the switch apart and then use the little kit to lube your own switches up. Now you'll see that these are the red switches from Rog, and this is their own NX switches, and there are various different ones, but you'll notice that the same Cherry MX stem on them, so you can use your own custom keycaps if you want to swap out the keycaps. Maybe that will enhance the RGB lighting, but you can break these apart and then you can lube them up. So you could adjust the lube if you find that you need to over time, but also you could just use your own switches, and that's a point I'll get to in a minute, because it does have the ability to take multiple different switch types. Now, it's worth noting that it does say that it's hot swappable in the specs, but actually they recommend making sure you turn it off before you swap the switches and not to do it turned on, which is confusing, but that's a small point. You can break out all the different parts and then go about the lubing process here. Now, this isn't necessary. You don't need to do this, and that's one of the highlights, because a lot of custom keyboards, you buy the various parts, including your switches, and then you have to go through the hassle of lubing them all up yourself. It can be a real chore. Or you can buy pre-lubed switches, which you end up paying a bit more money for. Whereas with this board, it already comes with lubed switches, but then you just get extra, and you have some additional ones there, but also you have the ability to remove them and maybe add more lube if you want to, if you're not happy with some of the keys, you feel like they're not giving you the right response. Now, this lubrication basically improves the feel of it. It gives you a smoother action. These are red switches that you can see in here. Obviously, they're designed for gamers. They're similar to the Cherry MX red switches that you'd normally see on a gaming keyboard. So they have a fast actuation. They've got a low actuation point of just 1.8 mil, so they're pretty responsive. I actually found a really very light touch, and sometimes they'll actuate when you don't really mean them to, because it's just 1.8 mil, 40 Gs of initial force, 45 grams of total force to push it all the way down, and a really good response rate. But you also have the choice of ROG NX brown switches and blues, obviously slightly different feel to those aimed more towards the typist at the blue end. So if you want a sort of more tactile response and a longer actuation, 2.3 mil on the blues. But again, you have the option to choose the switches when you buy it, but then also to change the switches entirely yourself. Now, you get all the little tools included in the box to do this. So you can see the keycap puller here, for example, and obviously naturally these just all pop off as standard. But what you'll see is loads of different things about this keyboard that are really premium. Obviously PBT double shot keycaps, the tools for removing the switches. You'll also notice when you pop these off that it has a 5-pin setup, so it's actually able to take 5-pin switches. It only comes with 3 pins, and you can then buy your own, whether that's 3 pins or not, and I've replaced them. So you can change the feel. Now, I've got a few different switches that I've been testing with other keyboards, and I've also tested out some other custom keyboards. Both NZXT and Corsair have done hot swappable keyboards recently, and those were pretty decent. However, this is even better because it has that 5-pin switch setup and also lube switches and multiple layers of dampening foam. It just is the nicest sounding keyboard from a main brand that I've seen that doesn't require a lot of faffing to get to sound nice. So you have the option to do all these things. You can see a number of different switch options here that I could potentially use, for example, or you can do your research out there and work out which ones are the nicest, perhaps a smoother action or quieter switches, whether that's Gateron yellows or something like the Novel Keys creams. Those are really smooth and quiet. And then you can just swap them out. Perhaps you might like something louder, and I'll show you in a second some box switches, for example, or Jade boxes. And then you can just pop them in. So whether you've got 3 or 5 switches, again, make sure you turn it off if you are doing this, because there's a warning about shorting the board out, even though it says it's hot swappable. But it's easy enough to replace. So it's really nice to see this customization at this level. So not only have you got all the usual features that you expect from a premium board in terms of the RGB lighting, the little display, the multifunction media playback button, you also have a compact design to it, so a 75% instead of a full size keyboard, which means it takes up less room on the desk and makes more space for your mouse. And then also you have this really nice setup with great looking sort of finish to it, a premium solid feel. It feels really good quality, and also the ability to customize it in a number of ways. So really impressed with this keyboard for a number of different reasons, and from multiple angles it looks really nice too. It's going to be quiet for a minute so you can hear some of the switch differences here. So you obviously see the red switches at the top, the standard ones, and then I've got a few other options here, including those box switches. And you'll notice, obviously, PBT double shot keycaps as well. So you're getting all those premium features. Now, it's well stabilized, as well as you'll hear from the various sound tests in this if you stick around or if you watch the separate video. The keys are well stabilized. You don't have a horrible ping from them. There's not a load of wobble in them. The main keys are nice and sort of funky, have that nice sort of thunk sound to them, rather than a horrible ping or a rattle that you might get from cheaper, lesser keyboards. It also looks the business and is really well built and solidly designed. So stick around now to hear a sound test, and then watch out for near the end where you'll get to see the SteelSeries Apex Pro and a Corsair K65 RGB Mini, just to hear the difference between those keyboards and this one. You'll get an idea of, I mean, those are pretty premium, the SteelSeries is, but you get an idea of what the dampening foam and the lubing makes a difference to the sort of typing experience. But even then, this doesn't do it justice, this sound test. And I actually ended up using my XLR mic setup to record some of this audio so you could hear just the quality of it, and it still doesn't do it justice. So stick around to the end and then let me know what you thought in the comments. You've made it right to the end of the video, you brilliant legend you. If you've enjoyed it, click that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and drop me a comment down below if you've got any questions. If you really enjoyed it, consider joining the channel and see the benefits of doing so. Check out these other videos. You might well find them interesting or useful. And most importantly, have a great life.